breaking news right now. I just want to report that a source has confirmed to Fox Business that the International Longshoremen Association has walked away from the negotiation table with the U.S. Maritime Alliance. Fox Business is told that the ILA is staying firm on not adding any new technology to the ports, despite the U.S.-Mexico officials saying that no jobs would be eliminated as part of dock automation. The deadline for the deal is January 15th. Our source says, quote, this is September all over again. Wow. So here we are watching the potential for this strike to cut into the growth we're talking about right now. Ryan, your reaction?
I think this plays into what I was just saying. I think inflationary pressure is going to be greater. Workers have more opportunity to negotiate than they have in a long time. We have a labor shortage in this country. Baby boomers retiring in droves. So labor inflation, I think, is going to be a big component. So I think I like having rosy-colored sunglasses on, too. You know, I'm an optimistic guy, but I think there's a lot of pressure on inflation. And I believe the 10-year Treasury at 4.3, almost 4.4%, that's telling you that we haven't beaten inflation yet. And I think some of these pro-growth policies are going to be great, but I don't think it completely addresses the deficit right now, and I think labor is a big component of that.
Well, look at this. The ILA union walking away from the port negotiation talks. Guys, your reaction?
Yeah, I mean, I think we've seen this trend where there's a sentiment that perhaps the Biden administration wouldn't step in and take any action to stop a strike. We saw union leaders really, frankly, turn away from Democrats. And I find this strike to be a really interesting one because it's focused on automation at ports where, you know, that's in direct conflict with the kind of technologies you need to reduce emissions and the kinds of things that fit with the Biden agenda. So I'm really curious to see how this shapes out, particularly with President Trump coming into office.
I mean, is it realistic, Dan Muser, to say that there will be no new technology used at any of these ports?
No, Maria, I've had enough time in manufacturing and production, and every time automation, first of all, it improves quality, which improves sales and tends to lower cost. We've always added employees along the way.
Well, they're not having it. The unions are not. The unions are not having it. The union workers are walking away. They say this is their number one issue. They're walking away from the negotiation, Jonathan. Where does this go?
This is surprising because it looked like this was going down the road of getting resolved. What, a month ago? We were talking about this a lot. But I think this idea that you're planting your flag on not innovating cannot be a good thing. And it's hard for any employer or anyone else to embrace that type of thing, to stay where we are, even though, you know, if they're committed to keeping the workers, that should be enough. But it's surprising that that's where they're staking their ground.
Cheryl, I'm wondering if this is one of the reasons that we're seeing this rally in stocks, because if you see the unions walk away from these negotiations, you start to think, well, wait a minute, maybe this is going to spike inflation. Maybe we do have a second spike in inflation. As Jason Trenner's research has told us, that moves the Federal Reserve to cut rates further. It's all connected. Your thoughts?
It is. And, you know, I was looking at the Fed funds futures a couple of moments ago. You know, you've now got this 75% chance you will get a cut next month. And, you know, Fed Governor Waller was saying in a speech last month that inflation has been a roller coaster. So Fed officials are very aware that this is a very volatile situation when it comes to inflation. So we're not at that 2% target, to be clear here. You know, and look, I will say one thing about, at least with the rental component of CPI, which has been an issue that we were speaking about a few moments ago. In the third quarter, rental vacancy rates hit 6.9%. That's a jump. So besides Baltimore and New York, the rest of the country, those numbers are actually, it looks like those numbers are going to continue to come down. The food component, though, that's a supply chain issue. Different story. Hard to say, Maria.
Well, what about that, Louis Navalier? You started our conversation talking about owner's equivalency rent. What do you see in this CPI report that you want to point out that strikes you? And does this news that the ILA union walking away from the port negotiations talk, does that change anything for you?
Well, they're concerned about automation because they think it's going to eliminate their jobs.
Right.
So somebody's got to talk to them that your jobs are not going to be eliminated, and then hopefully they can automate just like everyone else automates. It seems to be pretty silly. You know, they agreed on a 61.5% pay increase, I think, over 3 years. So hopefully cooler heads will prevail, you know, and there's a lot of changes at the ports. You know, we got a problem with the Panama Canal being dry. We got a problem with California demanding that the cranes be electric instead of their diesel right now. So there's a lot of logistics problems, and we just don't need this at this moment. So worst case, get some more money, you know.
And what about the owner's equivalency rent? What did you see in the CPI number that strikes you?
Yeah, it's stubborn. It's a problem, and it's very frustrating to a lot of us why the government numbers are so slow. Okay, so it's not the real world as far as I can tell, and hopefully the number will get progressively better. But you know, the uptick in food and chicken. Well, first of all, there's a bird flu that started in Washington State. My wife went to Avon's in Southern Cal. They had no chicken because of the bird flu. So at least I have a chicken stock, so I'm happy about that. But the and then you know Costco had its butter recall, so that's due to the FDA labeling. So there's 80,000 pounds of butter that just disappeared.
Well, I mean, look, this can't help. This can't help that the strike for the Longshoremen's Association is still going on, right? This can't help. This is only going to hurt the inflation story, isn't it?
Absolutely, but it'll get resolved because those are very high-paid workers. Those are very expensive cranes to operate, and it'll get resolved. I just think cooler heads have to prevail. They really have no business telling them how no automation. So we're just going to have to assure them that the automation will not threaten their jobs.